The time being 7 o'clock, I will call the City Council meeting of February 4th to order. If we would stand, please, and towards the flag, and we're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Let the roll reflect that all council persons are present and a quorum has been established. We will do approval of minutes. Council members, are there any corrections to the minutes of the January 22nd meeting and the council workshop? Seeing none, they are approved. Comments from the audience. Anyone in the audience that is wanting to speak to anything? Sure, come up please and state your name. And Kyle, could we have your address too, please?
1968 Ridge Lane.
Okay.
Just wanted to see if there was going to be any discussion about the path project between 21st and 19th.
February 19th will be a public hearing, the same time, 7 o'clock.
Will there be anything about it tonight?
There will not.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Council, are there any council items to be considered? Seeing none, we move to the consent agenda. Council, I will accept a motion to approve the consent agenda. Trevor, or I'm sorry, Councilmember Lund and Councilmember Brox, second. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion's passed. Tonight with us, we have Community Development Annual Report given by John Hinsman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Council members. So tonight, I have before you our Community Development Report for 2018, highlighting some of the activities of our department. The Community Development Department handles activities for HEDRA, the Hastings Economic Development Redevelopment Authority, the Planning Commission, and the Heritage Preservation Commission. So tonight, I want to highlight some of the activities that those commissions, as well as the council, have been involved in for projects in 2018. So we'll start out first with HEDRA. HEDRA is our economic development group made up of 7 members. We have 2 city council.
HEDRA is involved in a variety of economic development roles, redevelopment, loan programs, and industrial park sales. Looking at our projects in 2018, we're very glad to say that the Hudson building is no longer ours. We did transfer that in March of 2018, a long time coming with the Great River Landing development. So with that, the property, the 4.3 acres, the 100,000 square foot building is now in the hands of Confluence Development. They have submitted their building permits. We should be issuing those in the next week or two, which will allow them to begin construction shortly after. Again, it's a transformation of that building into a hotel, apartments, and banquet space, restaurant space within the building itself. One of the great things we've been able to see is the opening of the parking ramp, the construction of that, I should say, coming up late in 2018, opening up in the spring of this year, which will bring another 121 stalls to the downtown area, which will be a wonderful addition. But as we move over towards the east, we've developed this kind of bookend towards the west of the downtown, and now we're looking at kind of an eastern end anchor. We got some great help with that in 2017 with the development of the Art Space Hastings Loft building, the 37-unit building. Interesting enough, that building has been recognized by Minnesota Brownfields Rescape and it was nominated for their community award, impact award. We'll actually be having them at our meeting next week, or next time at City Council, to present that award formally to the city, but a great recognition of the work that went into that project. But that's only a portion of the block. We have 1/3 of the block with the building, the rest of the block we do own. And so Hedger was involved in 2018 in trying to develop that property. Towards the end of the year, we did sign a real estate option agreement with Panache Cidery to give them exclusive rights up until June 1st so that they can come together with a development and hopefully have a purchase and development agreement for the property. So work continues on that one. We're hopeful for a project to come forward and a development agreement that would come along with that later on this year. When we take a look at the activities Hedger's involved in, we help businesses grow through a number of sources that we have. One is our Hedger Loan Program. The Hedger Loan Program is a revolving loan fund that provides funding for commercial and residential redevelopment projects. Most of these are gap loans in which either the owner has equity but not enough to cover the project, or a bank loan provides a portion of it. So in 2018, we had a few of these over in the Meyer Building and Spiral Brewery. Both of these received loan funding for 2018, as well as this building over here on 101 East 6th Street, which we had a residential rehabilitation loan for window replacement. So a variety of skills that happen in those places. We're also involved in Open to Business, which is in conjunction with other cities within Dakota County. Open to Business provides one-on-one free entrepreneur assistance to those that are just thinking about businesses or new in business world to help them through the steps on that. And they've been given assistance now for probably 5 years or so. They also have a gap loan program which has been utilized a few times by people as well. We also have land for sale. Within our Hastings Industrial Park, we have 50 acres of shovel-ready certified land. Shovel-ready certified means that everything's in place. Utilities in place, environmental review has been completed. It's ready to go for sale. And so we have that available. We're also preparing for future development as well, charting courses for future development. We're involved with the Hastings Area Chamber and participated with monthly business ambassador visits, in which we go out and visit with businesses to find out how they're doing and what assistance we might be able to provide. In more detail, we also are involved in business retention and expansion visits, in which we sit down more formally with business owners and operators to assess future needs. We found out through these businesses that our strengths are a small community feel, increased investment and attention in the community, strong word-of-mouth marketing, room to do many different things with businesses, tight-knit nature, great connections, and a great workforce. These are things that were identified as our strengths through these visits. We're also involved in strategic planning as well. Coming up later in this month, Hedger will be meeting to review our strategic plan to ensure that the plan that we charted out last year is still on track and any changes and modifications that we should make on that. We were also involved with the Vermilion Corridor study last year, which is kind of a pivot away from all the great work we've done in the downtown area. With the Vermilion Street Corridor, we identified 4 or 5 different areas and developed plans for these specific areas. How the plan will be used in a couple of ways. Number one, people that are interested in redevelopment of those properties can look at this as a guideline as to what would be accepted by the city and what the city desires. Second, it provides us with an opportunity to take this plan to individual property owners to see if they're interested in doing something of this nature, and if so, what sort of obstacles they may have and what sort of assistance we might be able to play to help these properties along. We had a number of businesses come in last year, 18 new businesses and relocations. From the real estate market, it was a good year for us. I mean, when you take a look at Hastings compared to Dakota County and the rest of the Twin Cities, new listings were above the other two, as well as closed sales were down. Before those, we had more higher median sales price, a higher average sales price, and less days on the market. So it appears our market here, real estate-wise, appears healthier from the change in 18 to 19 as with Dakota County and the Twin Cities, which is great. Moving on to the Planning Commission. Our Planning Commission is a 7-member body that meets twice a month, appointed by the City Council, working on different land use approvals, site plans, platting, variances, ordinances, those type of things. When you take a look at the projects we were involved in 2018, Aspen Dental Clinic was a great one. This was a property that was owned by the city. We sold it to them to create a 3,500 square foot dental clinic at a corner of property that we had not anticipated for development in the past, which was a great addition. We approved the addition and the renovation to Pleasantville Library, as well as a 25-lot subdivision to South Pines 9 addition, which will finally finish that Sandpiper Circle loop that's been uncompleted for a period of years. We also had a couple of apartment projects with Vermilion Shores, a new 60-unit apartment building near 31st Street and County Road 47. We expect construction to start there later on this year. And then the Great River Landing project. We worked on the parking ramp and the landscape photometric plan for that project. Worked with Resurrection Methodist Church on a parking lot expansion and demolition of a home, creating a larger stormwater area for the church site. Went through a goat ordinance to allow goats, temporary keeping of goats for control of invasive species. So hopeful that gets taken advantage of later on this year. Worked with Wise Funeral Home on expansion, Intex Plastics with a parking lot expansion, and then did some work with the Wallen addition. We also worked on the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is a shared vision that takes a look at where we want to be over the next 20 years. We were fortunate to have great attendance from our comprehensive plan steering committee, in which Mayor Fassbender was part of that, to help us provide that vision. And we had a number of opportunities for people to be involved, either online or in-person visits. And we'll be using this on the Planning Commission over the next year or two to look at potential ordinance changes to ensure that the plan that we set out is something that can be achieved. Take a look at construction activity for 2018. We had a pretty good year. We had 109 permits issued, which was more than we've had in the last 10 years. Now, the asterisk to it is most of those, 88, were in one building. We had a large apartment complex that was constructed over near Glendale Heights, which accounted for most of them. We had about $14 million in valuation, which was over double what we had last year. 15 single-family permits this year. We had 30 last year. When you look at the commercial end of it, we were up by about a third in the number of permits as well as the valuation. So 3 new commercial permits and 54 remodels. So that's a sign of a good economy and sign of good investment within the city. So building permits, this is kind of the long view of that, looking over the last almost 30 years or so. We had a great big peak here in the middle 2000s, more moderate development down here, and then this is reflective of the spike we had with the apartment building this year. We take a look at that coming into next year. We anticipate we'll have that Vermilion Shores building, and we'll have the building permit for Great River Landing. That'll be another 80 units at least on top of what we're going to be doing for any single family that comes along. Right now, population-wise, we're at just under 23,000 people. So also one of the things we do is we take a look at our existing and potential development, looking at what's available today that could be constructed with the building permit, what has been planned or has been partially through Planning Commission or Council that we believe is going to be coming up in the near future, and then looking at potential development, which is areas in which there has not been any commitments or indication for property owners, but land that's been identified within our comprehensive plan for future development. So we look at our inventory, first of all, with what's immediately available. Right now, we've got about 78 lots that could be purchased and constructed today, which has been continuing to dwindle. When you take a look at this column here with the percent developed, most of these subdivisions are 2/3 to 3/4 developed, which means there's a slowing up, there's a lot fewer there. We have not seen a new single-family subdivision come through in some time here. And so we think that would be something that would be an addition to that lot supply would be healthy for the city, and the lot supply that we have is getting a little bit on the small end. When you look at the townhome end of it, we haven't seen much townhome activity in the last 10 or so years. And then with the multifamily, we have about 244 units available that we have planned for multifamily development. And then when you take a look at what's been out there that we have looked at, that developers have come forward with, that was given some sort of approvals to. We've got another 134 units, so we could more than double the lot supply that we have available through approvals on a variety of other developments. And then when we take a look at the long term, we have a lot of land available. The one thing that's about Hastings is we're surrounded by unincorporated land, and we don't have a loss for land for development purposes. We also have in charge of the Heritage Preservation Commission. Some of the activities that we were involved in last year there, we reviewed 20 building permits for renovations for historic structures. We assisted with a couple of large projects, the masonry project here at City Hall and the installation of a new roof at the Leduc Estate. Both of those we were fortunate to receive Minnesota Historical Society grants to help fund the cost of those developments. And we also presented 5 awards recognizing outstanding achievements in historic preservation. So that concludes my summary of community development activities for 2018, and I can stand for any questions.
Council? Any questions? Sure.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm really pleased with the numbers that I'm seeing, especially in terms of housing and commercial building permits. If I'm correct here, let's see, as you said, 109 new residential building permits. That's not necessarily for a housing unit, but that's for things associated with housing that might be here. The commercial building permits, 57. That's, and again, both of those, the 109 building permits, 14.3 million. 57 commercial building permits, 14.7 million. That we're adding to the total in terms of improvements on properties. They're looking, without adding this up precisely, the Voyager Estates. This is, some things I'm really pleased with. 88 unit, 3-story apartment building east of the Hastings Industrial Park. 88 units. Approval of a 60-unit apartment building that's going to be built west of 31st Street. And let's see, if you throw in the Hudson, I don't want to call it that anymore, the Great River Landing project, we're talking over 30 apartments. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, council member, with those projects would be about 160 apartment units between those three, about 88 in Voyager Estates, 60 on 31st Street, the Seaward project, and another 20 at Hudson.
So approximately 20 then. Yeah, that's, I just see that as, hey folks, we've got places where people can move into.
What's nice about that too is, if it's an opportunity for people to move into town that may not have opportunities before, or an opportunity for people to move out of existing housing and free that up for others.
Exactly. So it's fluid in a nice way, and I'm really pleased to see that. And I think we're getting the attention of developers in terms of what we can do on that. Our projected growth between now and 2040 is to go from approximately 23,000 people to 30,000. That's quite a nice jump in about a 15 or 20 year period of time, and so it is indicating a city on the move, and that's really, really nice to see. And I want to thank you and your department for all of the work that you have done. I don't have this here, but the grants that were approved and initiated through your paperwork, your department's paperwork, $250,000?
Last year year, probably closer to half, because we had,
Okay,
between Hudson and the other grants that Justin did with the Historic Society.
right. And seeing things, I mean, the parking ramp is a great example. The city is not directly paying for that parking ramp. It's an indirect payment because it's coming from the Met Council. The Met Council gets their money from the state. The state gets their money from us. But it is nice to see that the Met Council is putting their faith in the development of our commercial historic downtown area, in addition to other things that we've gotten through those grants. And that's just all really, really pleasing. I see some wonderfully positive things with all of this. And just to finish, this is not all city council that does this, and it's not all city staff that does this. There has to be a great amount of pride in the commission structure, our planning commission, our historic preservation commission, the Hedra Commission. These are all volunteers who work on these commissions and sort of set our sights on what our policies should be. And it's with that view, then the city staff and we as a city council can move forward on this. So I really do want to thank our commission volunteers for the super work that they're doing in terms of planning for our future. The other one was the comprehensive plan committee as well. I don't want to leave them out on that. So all very, very positive. I'm really pleased with what I'm seeing here in terms of what you've done. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have a few questions. Bear with me. I am really eager for us to have in the next year more conversations about development, particularly for single-home residential. And something I see that we could really use within our community are more neighborhoods that are in the $300,000 to low $400,000 range, like that next step up, so that we can begin to see some, folks moving from more of the affordable homes into a step up. I know a lot of us have heard discussions from community members where they want to stay in the community, they don't have that next step up necessarily that they can move into. And then additionally, we hear so much about the need for more affordable housing. And so something I'm very much interested in is being more proactive in helping along the development of these new neighborhoods. And I'm not exactly sure what our role is, and I'm not exactly sure what the city's role has been in the past. Morgan's position as the Economic Development Coordinator has been vacant now for the last several months. And she wasn't on board for very long, and so I think a lot of that was her, kind of getting her legs under her, and she was doing a great job, and I'm so sad to see her leave when she did. And so I'm interested in also having more conversations about where is that position and being fulfilled, and and just having a better understanding about what are the duties of that position, how much of it is reactive, do businesses come knocking on our door and then that position helps them along? As you had mentioned that there are some of these programs that are in place, to help new businesses once they are interested in Hastings, but just to have a better understanding of how forward thinking are we, how assertive are we in going after developers and bringing them in, and some of the communities like Cottage Grove, the mayor of Cottage Grove helps spearhead an initiative where they go to conferences, and sell their city. And so I'm, interested in those kinds of conversations. And so I know that a lot, but I was just so I'm curious as to just if you could speak to just real quickly, how active is the city in helping along neighborhood development? Like you have, this is a wonderful map to see. This is the first time I've noted it, and so it's very nice to see where there's potential development and then plan development that's already in progress. And so, could you just give me the 30-second overview maybe about that?
Definitely are people looking at that, doing some conceptual plans, and hopefully something that we do in the future on a regular basis. So new development. Yeah. I just want to do you have another opportunity to have a Personally, I would like to be more active in those conversations and understanding how things have worked in the past and how it is that we might improve things in the future.
Councilmember Brooks.
I just have a question regarding annexation. So typically, when we've talked about the comprehensive plan in the past, we have talked about the possibility of annexation. Typically, when we plan for annexation, I'm just wondering what order it goes in. So do we annex land and then have someone approach us about developing it, or do we typically annex land first and then later we have a developer who's interested in working on that land? And I only ask that because we did have some annexation in our comprehensive plan that we're have developed. And we also got letters from some of the townships saying they were not in favor of that. So I'm just wondering, how are those conversations going to be approached, and what order do we do things in? Because of the sensitive nature of the townships not really wanting to give up their land. Can you just kind of describe how that process goes?
Absolutely. With the comprehensive plan, we identified to us.
So thank you for that. And I guess my follow-up question is there a tipping point? Is there a certain percentage where you see the housing stock over a certain percentage full, where you start having some more conversations about being proactive? Because I see us very close. I mean, we have a lot of our housing stock already taken up. And we're still growing, and I know it's not our job to develop properties. It is the market's job to meet that need. But is there a tipping point where it comes to 80% of our housing stock is at capacity, or 90%? Or is there a point at which we do need to plan to look at that and think about proactively annexing some land? Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Hinsman, thanks for the recap. It's always nice to see a whole bunch of work all at once. It's overwhelming, probably, yeah. So, a couple of questions, point of clarification on Panache, the cidery. You said June 1st was the deadline to hear back from them regarding intent, is that correct?
Sort of, yeah. We signed the real estate option agreement with them. One of the conditions of the real estate option is that it would be valid through June 1st. So we have between now and June 1st to work with them on establishing a purchase price for the property. And the intent would be to have a purchase and development agreement in place prior to the expiration of that agreement in June. So
Okay.
Negotiating the purchase price and negotiating the parameters of the purchase and development agreement. Now, the purchase and development agreement would basically say, here's the price of the land, and here's the condition for sale. Let's move forward towards that, similar to what we did with the Hudson project.
So we'll likely hear more sooner than this with the item. Okay.
Exactly, yeah. More work between now and June. Exactly.
All right, another date question. Vermilion Shores, you said sometime this year. Do we have an end completion date where people will be bringing U-Hauls in, or?
With Vermilion Shores, I'm uncertain. It all depends on when the building permit is submitted. I've heard from people that they anticipate doing that sometime in the spring. Looking at the build-out project for that, if I compare that to the apartment building that's being constructed at Voyager Estates, which is probably a 9 or 10 month project, you know, like it could be into 2020 before the move-in comes in. But we do have the one at Glendale Heights, the Voyager Estates one, which towards the end of this year, we have U-Hauls at.
Okay, sounds good. And Your Honor, just a couple more questions. So, the Hedra loan for that home on 101 East 6th was interesting to me. How was that communicated to that owner? How did they come to you? What was the process? Do we reach out to people, or you know, because that seems like that's a little bit of a one-off, and maybe something that Hedra should be looking at as a plan going forward. You know, as we do look at talking about people moving out of existing homes into these apartments or whatever. No doubt there's opportunities to improve the home at that point in time too. So I'd like to know a little bit about the process there if you remember.
Yeah, with that one in particular, I don't know if we necessarily reached out to them in any fashion. There's some instances where we do that. On that one, I don't think we did. I can't say specifically how they heard about the project.
Okay.
Some of the things we have done in the past for advertising is, you know, we contact people directly if there's a code enforcement issue, if there's another mechanism to be involved in the property as well to help with this loan program, or through the historic preservation process in a lot of historic homes. There can be the opportunity to present this as a mechanism for making those improvements.
Okay, you're on your last question too. So a little bit along the same lines, you'd mentioned the cyclical nature of how we can maybe move, you know, expanding one area opens opportunity for another. Is there a way for us, or do we, or can we track that cycle, understand? You know, Councilmember Balsonic mentioned 160 new apartments are coming into town. But what impact does that have besides the obvious, which is 160 new apartments? So can we get an understanding of what that ripple effect looks like and to the overall housing stock? I think that would be really helpful for us as we do tackle this housing opportunity, I guess I would say, so we have an understanding of when we do X, Y, and Z occur, and is that the result we want or whatever. So I don't know exactly what I'm saying specifically, other than if we had that information, then we might be able to be more proactive and use that to our advantage. So I don't know if we track it now or if that's something that we could get some information on. That'd be great.
No, I would agree.
John, for that report. It was very bright to hear about 2018 and hoping that 2019 will be just as bright. So, thank you. Let's see. Any council members have any announcements to make? Councilmember Brox?
Well, our audience members aren't necessarily here in City Hall, but we have lots of stomping and singing going on in this building tonight. And if you see us looking around, there's no wasps. But there are people upstairs practicing, and that's because Lumen Theater Lab is performing a Scarlet Letter at City Hall, and it opens this weekend. I'm going to be doing a talk back on one of the nights this weekend, so if you're interested in attending, Tony Alonji, who's a former council member, and I are going to be doing a talk back session about some of the issues that are raised in the play. So if you're interested, come on down for the next couple weekends and see the play.
Thank you. Councilmember Lund?
On February 12th, 7 p.m. here at City Hall, the Parks and Rec Commission will be meeting.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes? Councilmember Balsanic?
Thank you, Your Honor. I wanted to read a email that we received, we being the City Council, and staff received as a reaction to what Councilmember Fulch had brought up at the last City Council meeting, where she expressed concerns about the quality and future of Lake Rebecca. I want to read this in because her statements were made without anyone from the Park and Recreation Department in attendance, so that answers could be given to the questions that she had. So I'm going to read this. It's about a page and a half, but I think it speaks quite specifically to the concerns that Councilmember Fulch had. Mayor and Council, I wanted to provide a little background and context around the water quality monitoring program at Lake Rebecca, which was mentioned at the January 22 City Council meeting. In early 2015 or late 14, I called a meeting with the Minnesota DNR Fisheries, Hastings Environmental Protectors, Soil and Water Conservation, and perhaps even a few others to discuss the potential for water quality enhancement projects at Lake Rebecca. At that time, it was determined that water quality data was necessary to enable justification for projects, solicitation of project funding, and partnerships, and so on and so on. With that information, I put into contact with the Metropolitan Council and the city, have then participated in the Camp Citizens Assisted Monitoring Program during the 2015, 16, 17, and 18 summer sessions, and the 2015 and 17 summaries are attached. Hastings Environmental Protectors members have graciously volunteered all these years to collect water samples on our behalf. Ultimately, we are gathering data so that we can seek out meaningful water quality enhancements. At this time, we don't have a firm grasp on what those projects might be or a full picture of all of the contributing factors. I can, however, tell you that the water quality in Lake Rebecca is affected by rain events, groundwater levels, storms and high winds, lake water level, and a variety of other sources. Please note that the water level in Lake Rebecca is controlled by staff, and it is held artificially above the level of the Mississippi River. This is done to help keep undesirable fish species out of the lake because it is a very good fishing lake, and I can certainly attest to that. There is an outlet on the southeast end of the lake where staff install and remove stop logs as the level of the Mississippi River rises and falls. When the Mississippi River remains high for long durations, vegetation on the banks of the river that would ordinarily be high and dry is underwater and begins to break down and decompose. This is another important factor which plays some part in the water quality of the lake. Also important to note is that Lake Rebecca has been created and altered, or at least it does not exist today in the same way that it did over 30 years ago. A look at the 1927 aerial imagery from Dakota County shows a very different landscape, where there was a backwater slough prior to the construction of the lock and dam. After the lock and dam construction, it appears that Lake Rebecca was formed, and that is evident in the 1937 aerial imagery. What is important to note is that the southeast corner of the lake is not actually a lake. The 1974 aerial imagery shows that same situation. I'm not sure exactly when the development occurred at Lake Rebecca Park, mid-80s, as I recall, but you can see clearly in the 1991 aerial imagery the existence of a swim beach, picnic tables, trails, fishing piers, parking lots, etc. Our staff here at Parks certainly remember those days. The 1997 aerial imagery shows a very unfortunate occurrence, the whole park underwater. Events like this require many years for a small body of water to recover from this, if they ever do. Some years ago, it was common practice for city maintenance staff to finish mow all of the grass areas around Lake Rebecca. It was also a heavily used park with a swim beach, changing house, and a variety of other amenities. After the intense human use of the beach, once that use declined, a plan was put in place to plant and let grow taller native grasses in some areas. That practice is still in place today. However, there are times when the grass gets more of a haircut for one reason or another. Geese, both resident and migratory, have been a reality at Lake Rebecca for as long as anyone around here can remember. Letting grasses grow longer is one strategy employed to reduce the number of geese and other waterfowl, as is letting the lake freeze over in the early season prior to starting the aeration system. Neither of those strategies eliminates the geese from the area, but the hope is that it reduces the number that reside or overwinter. With limited human use in the area, meaning it is not heavily developed for intense recreational activities, and both feed and cover for these waterfowl, it is next to impossible to remove them from the area. In the not too distant past, live capture of geese was performed at a cost to the city. Those capture events, unless sustained for many years in conjunction with other deterrent efforts, have no meaningful effect on migratory waterfowl populations and require substantial financial commitment. I wanted to provide this information so that all council members have a deeper awareness surrounding both the water quality of the lake and the migratory waterfowl population. I am hopeful that in the not too distant future, the city will be able to help enhance the water quality of Lake Rebecca through meaningful efforts and projects. Those efforts and projects will require partnerships with other agencies and groups, and I am glad that we have many of those in place and in good standing today. If you have any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me individually. I am always happy to provide information. There were aerial photographs that were supplied along with this email. And it is signed by Chris Jenkins, our Parks and Recreation Director. I wanted this read in because I didn't think it was appropriate for us as a council to bring up issues that we're not familiar with. And it would be much better if we would contact the department heads, the department directors, directly on a one-on-one basis, and I think we could save ourselves a great deal of time in terms of what we do here as a council in the future. And with that, I'll relinquish the floor. Thank you, Your Honor.
Councilmember Vaughn?
Your Honor, and thank you, Councilor Balsonic. I appreciate it. I mean, we got that same email. I read it, and it was very good information. I think this is something I hope we talk about in our upcoming workshop, because this is an item that I would encourage staff to take and get to your commission with, because our commission, and then get this out to the public, because this is great information that our department head has on great knowledge and great history and great maps. This is a great communication tool that we need to get out to the public. But I agree with Councilor Balsonic. If we have or we hear from residents, I think we need to use either our committee or our commissions to our advantage. Let's spread out our work to our residents so they can get some good input. I would love to have our Parks Commission really go through this and try to figure out, and like you had said, Chris Jenkins is in the crowd, let's find out, let's dig in, what can we do like Rebecca to get this thing back up there? And be careful and be prepared for what if we get another flood, what happens then? I learned a lot that
No, there's nothing.
controlling the level thing is a very important thing, and it's great to do it. I just think it's a great communication opportunity for us. Councilor Basad, thanks for reading it. I guess I should have waited until you read it 2 minutes. It was pretty good, but I just think it's for us, Your Honor. I want
Sure.
to see this in our
Sure.
coming workshop. This is items that I think that we need to get to our commissions.
Sure. Thank you, Councilmember Balsonic. Thank you, Councilmember Vaughn. Any other discussion? Okay. Yes.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd just like to point out, when I brought this up at the last meeting, it was just as a report out from the Hastings Environmental Protectors, and that was their primary concern, and they were just informing the group about what the history of Lake Rebecca has been and their efforts to help measure the quality of the water, and that they were eager to work with the city in finding solutions. And so that's why I brought it to the council, so that we were all fully informed as to what our only environmental group within the city is most concerned about. And Chris is always gracious in providing feedback whenever you ask him. And so thank you, Chris, for doing such a nice job. You always do.
Thank you.
So anyhow, I just wanted to
Great.
remind folks as to why that was brought forward. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember. Anything else? Okay, other announcements that I have. The state of address is at 11:30 at Dakota Pines on Wednesday, February 6th. There will be a Public Safety Advisory Commission work session at 6:30 at City Hall on Thursday, February 7th. City Council Strategic Planning Session will be on Wednesday, February 13th from 6 to 9, and on Saturday, February 16th, 8:30 to 1:30, and that will be here at City Hall. There will be a HEDRA meeting at 6 p.m. At City Hall on Thursday, February 14th. Monday, February 18th, the city offices will be closed. Wednesday, February 6th, Dakota County Transportation Public Open House to discuss the County Road 42 and Mississippi Trail reconstruction, and that'll be 4:30 to 6:30 at Shars Bluff Gathering Center. The next Equity Innovation Lab is at 6 p.m. at Dakota Pines Banquet Center, will be on Tuesday, February 19th. I'd like to have the topic of keeping of chickens in residential areas be considered. This topic was visited in 2009, and I suggest this be referred to the Planning Committee of the Council with Chair Vaughn and Council Members Brox and Fulch. Next council meeting will be on Tuesday, February 19th, 7 p.m. at City Hall. Councilmember Vaughn.
Thank you, Your Honor. Since John Hitzman's here, I want to confirm, we do not have a HEDRA meeting on the 14th, correct? Did it get moved to a workshop on the 22nd and Saturday?
Councilmember, we do have one scheduled, in theory, on the 14th at this point. I'm working on a couple of items that may be available for that meeting, but I will provide an update later this week.
Thank you. Your Honor, confirm, you're asking us as a planning committee to discuss
Bringing that
just
ordinance back up and
the ordinance of allowing,
people to have chickens on their residence.
okay.
there no other announcements? Oh, Councilmember Balsonic? Oh, sorry, Councilmember Brox?
This isn't an announcement, it's a little off topic, but I think I was thinking about it. It's been very cold the last week and a half. The kids have been out of school, and I have the option to work from home, which is a wonderful option, and I realize not everybody has. But I was thinking about all of our first responders who have been out in this cold weather, as particularly our fire department, our police department, our public works employees who actually have more to do, our parks employees who actually have more to do when it's inclement weather. And so I just wanted to say that I am grateful for all that you're doing, all that you do, and I know it's even harder to do your job when it's this cold and icy. And I am very thankful for all of our city employees, but especially those who have to be out in the cold and work in very difficult conditions and help people who are also in crisis situations. So I just want to say thank you. We're very appreciative of you always, but especially the last week and a half, I've been thinking about that. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Brox. Councilmember Balsonic?
Thank you, Your Honor. I should probably mention that the League of Minnesota Cities annual legislative conference is being held on the 20th and 21st of February. And for the public's knowledge, this is when hopefully as many city council members as possible from all over the state descend upon the state capitol to meet with legislators, our reps and senators, to talk about items that we feel are beneficial to the various cities, Hastings included. And so that is a two-day event. And I am planning on attending. I don't know if anybody else is going to that or not. Our mayor is, and Councilmember Vaughn will be going, and our city administrator. Okay, good. Julie will be going too. Okay, thank you very much.
If there are no other announcements, oh, Councilmember Fulch?
Since we're ending up, we're having a couple extra announcements. I just wanted to bring up for the boys varsity hockey team that they are having seniors night on Valentine's Day. It's February 14th. And I love those boys, and so I thought it was appropriate that, just to bring it up, that if folks want to get out there and watch some great hockey, they're playing at 7:30 on Valentine's Day, and our boys varsity team is doing really excellent this year. I lose track of how many wins they have. I want to say it's like 15-4 or something like that, but it's been a long time since we've had such an excellent team and a great goalie as well. So, go Raiders. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Council, I will accept a motion to adjourn. Councilmember Lund, Councilmember Brox. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is